Yo, yo, what's up? What it do? What it do? What it do? What it do? Got something new. You know I stay with some new shit, always doing something, always try to do something. I got a check in the mail today. I like when checks come in the mail. I really do like it when a check comes in the mail. Love it when the check is in the mail. Get money right to the door, right to the front door. Walk in the house to some money, money, money. No, I love it. Ouch. Wow. Got a goddamn hangnail. Clip that motherfucker off. I mean, you can't have hangnails when you're painting in the studio. You know, not in the studio. No hangnails allowed. Hangnails are completely unacceptable here. Completely unacceptable. All right, all right. Okay, okay. Oh shit. Oh nigga. Shit, the weed trying to smoke me. What the fuck? Can't allow that to happen. Got some good news, bro. What the fuck? Yo, my guy got that shit. I say he don't. Well, I ain't gonna lie, yo. He called out. He called out names the other day. But this was the first time. Like my guy, he stays with top quality, high grade. He just don't never call it nothing. I be like, let me get something for this amount. He come through with it. I don't be asking what that shit called. But the other day he said 3 different flavors. Gelato 33, cookie glue, and platinum kush. I don't know what this is. I don't know if it's the cookie glue or some platinum kush. Gelato 33. But whatever the fuck that shit is, bruh, that shit slapping. Boy, I ain't gonna lie, that shit slapping the fuck out of me, homie. She got my arms sweating. Whew. Make my scalp tingle. I like that. You know what I'm saying? Full body rush. But what we got though, right here on the laptop, the latest episode from my TV show. And so the studio guy sent me the link. It's not out for anybody else yet. He just sent me the direct link, told me to watch it, see if it's nice, if there's anything I want edited out or anything like that. So I haven't seen it yet. This is going to be my first time previewing this episode. We recorded it almost a month ago, 3-4 weeks ago now, about for like last month, at least a month ago. And in the past couple of months we've done 5 episodes, and they've just been editing the episodes that we've done, and this is the first one we got out. I actually did a couple of interviews before this one. This was the next to the last one I did, and I did 5, because I did 3 interviews before this one. Then I did her, and then the next interview I did one of my homies. And so, and that's cool too. I think, I don't know, we try to put the best stuff first. And I do remember me and her talking, and this was a really, really good interview, for the simple fact that me and the artist already have a rapport. She's told me several times in the past, years ago. I've known her for years now, at least 3-4 years. And when I do shows around town and when I'm at the gallery, she's always just giving me the highest praise when it comes to my art, bro. I remember the first time I had I've known her for way more than 4 years, and this was like 6-7 years ago almost. I did a big show, and yo, she said the craziest thing to me, yo. It was so wild. But I had a girlfriend at the time. Our girl was there, and she was with her husband, and she was just like, "Oh my God, are you the artist? You're Travis. I just gotta shake your hand. Oh my God, like your art is amazing." She's like, "I love it so much. It's making me horny. I'm gonna go home and fuck the shit out of my husband." And me and my girl looked at each other, and she was like, "I'm sorry. That's just how stoked I am about your art." Like that was probably one of the best compliments I've ever gotten for my art. For a chick to be like, looking at your art is like art porn. It's so good. I need to go fuck my husband right now. I was like, yo, thank you. Like that's what's up. That is the best compliment, you know. And then somebody asked me a question one time that I thought was a really, really good compliment, but it was literally a question. Um, One of my favorite artists, Kehinde Wiley. Uh, yo, the picture of Obama, that painting that was done of Obama, he's sitting down and he has all the leaves and green behind him. Like, the homie did that, yo. The big homie, Kehinde Wiley. Yo, his shit is, he's a master artist, yo. He's a master artist. And then soon as I seen that painting, I was like, oh my fucking god, Obama got him to do his painting. That's what's up, yo. That shit was, like, I was so excited, like, that shit was amazing, yo. And then somebody, like, that shit, when it first came out, it was all over the internet. A lot of people liked it, a lot of people didn't like it. And then somebody texted me, they was like, yo, did you do that painting of Obama? I was like, no, but I'm happy you think I did. I'm happy you saw that. You saw that masterpiece and you thought I did that. Like, thank you. Appreciate that. But no, I didn't do that. It's crazy that you thought I did that though. Like that was another really good compliment, and it was like a sideways compliment because they just asked the question, "Yo, you did that painting of Obama?" Nah, nigga. If I did that painting of Obama, I wouldn't be talking to your ass. Like, nah. I'll be chilling with the Obamas. You know what I'm saying? Sipping tea in the White House, me and Kermit the Frog style. Shit. Because each president gets a presidential portrait, and they themselves get to select the artist they want to paint their portrait. And so whatever artist in the world, nobody ain't gonna turn that shit down. Like, yo, the president of the United States wants you to paint their picture that's gonna go in the White House official collection forever. Like, anybody's gonna jump, and I can't even imagine like what the commission on that shit is. Like, what's the commission on that shit? How much you get paid for that shit, yo? That's $1 million gig, yo. I want $1 million. The White House collection, a presidential portrait. I'd do it for $500,000. Give me $500,000. Now, you probably got a set price already for that shit though. But let me get selected to do some shit like that. I had yeah, I ain't gonna lie, yo. I'm like a Facebook junkie. I be on that bitch all the time. I post a question up there. I was like, I told everybody to Google my name and see what happened. Motherfuckers surprised, yo. Like, when I first started doing that shit, like, I do that shit like every couple months now, just to see, cause it seems like I don't know how it gets up there. I don't know how the fucking algorithm works, but I recently did a couple of news interviews. I had some news spots. And then, like, when I do shit like that, I check Google. Boy, that shit be up there. I'm like, how the fuck they know that? Like, I don't know, yo. Yeah, I should be able to. I be slipping, bro. I keep meaning to shoot you my info. I don't know if I ever did shoot you my info or not. But yeah. All right. My email. All right, my email is all my pay accounts too. That shit's like, my email is my PayPal account. I got a Zelle account, the Cash app. However, whatever. Let me see what these apps are. Whatever apps motherfuckers use, I use the same email for all that shit, yo. So you got PayPal, that's my Wells Fargo bank account, the Cash App, MoneyGram, Zelle, Zillow, that's something else. The Stash Joan, like so there's, and then there's some other like transaction app like that I see. Somebody said, "Oh, you got something?" I can't even remember what that shit was. I was like, "No, I ain't got that shit." But Apple Pay is the Cash App, right? That's the same shit. Cash App is Apple Pay, or I don't know. There's like I say, there's like three or four of them motherfuckers. But yeah, even if you know how it be, bro. But we'll get it. Hey, we'll get it together eventually. It'll come together. So what I'm thinking is, if I can't find them locally, I'll just hit the mall. Or, I can. Everything is online. You can just do everything over the Joan, man. I can go on the local mall Joan, see if they got them. If they don't, I'll just order them and have them come here. And that's the thing, like that shipping, the two shipping is the only thing. Like having you get them and shipping to me, that shit don't make no sense. I might as well get them. I might as well get them shits and save you whatever the $30 or $40, whatever the first time to ship it here. So if I can pick them up locally at a mall, or have them shits ordered, or my address, and that's something too. You can order them and send them to me. You know what I'm saying? If you can, if they're not local for you, where you can't go grab them, and you want to get them offline, all you do is order them shits online and put my address in that shit. Have them shits come to me. They like I said, they different ways, but just to so you don't have to pay for the shipping to get it here. Bruh, I'm waiting on the new jump. You know what I'm saying? Get to the basement, the cellar, the cellar, the cellar. Okay, motherfucker. 3 seasons. I get it. I slow. I get it. This shit is awesome though. But I'm like, what the fuck is in the basement? You get to the basement, it's like, what the fuck is this? Is that a drawing? He's like, that ain't no drawing. That's too real. And my father told me about this place that was different. And they had photography and automobiles. And it was a place where the land ends and it's water as far as the eye can see. And now it's like, we realize we got the fucking power and they banished us here because we was dominating shit. And now they make it seem like they dominate us and we live in fear, but in actuality they were living in fear of us. And now it's just like, huh? Damn, spoilers, my bad, bro. Fuck. My cousin tried to get me to watch that shit like when it first came out a couple years ago, but it wasn't dubbed. And I'll watch a dubbed movie, like I don't know, like a karate flick or some shit like that, or even like foreign films, like a Spanish film, or like there was this one TV show. It was called 3%, or this something percent, yo. I think it was like 3%, but it was that shit came from like South America, yo. So they're speaking like Spanish. But the shit was so good, I just read the whole shit in subtitles, and then a while later they put dub on that shit. But like an anime, like I'm so into the art, bro. Like I can't watch the animation and read that shit at the same time. That shit don't work for me, man. I don't like doing that shit. I gotta, and like I say, so the first time when the Tackle Titan was out, they didn't have a dubbed version. It was only subtitled. And I'm like, man, this shit look hot. The animation look hot, but I can't sit here and read no anime, yo. But now, I clicked on that shit again. I was like, Attack on Titan. Dub version. Word, y'all got English on this shit? Let me watch this motherfucker, yo. The Basement, nigga. The Basement. What's in the cellar? Yo, these motherfuckers take forever to get to the cellar, yo. But it tripped me out with their gear too, yo. Their gear, motherfuckers like Spider-Man. Cause sometimes Spider-Man, he shoot that shit. Like, bro, what is you connecting that shit to? It like ain't nothing there, nigga. Come on now, for real. Be for real, Spider-Man. And then, yo, the motherfucker Raiders, they be out, they hitting them shit. Like, what is that shit connecting in? And then they be flying in the air for a long time talking. Like, yeah, when we get to the next location, we're going to round about. And it's like, wait a minute, y'all still flying like that, bro? Like, that's some crazy ass fucking ODM gear. That shit almost magical, damn near. $50. Boozy. Damn. That shit on Hulu, yo. I watched that shit on Hulu. I feel like my phone bill expensive as shit, man. Like, I got high ass phone bill, always complain about this shit, but I'm too lazy to like really try to like search for a different carrier, so I just deal with it. And then like now Sprint gave me Hulu for free, but it's like the bootleg free version where you get all the commercials and shit. But Hulu, mad anime on that shit. That's the only thing I watch on that shit, yo. Anime. And Attack on Titan was like the first anime series I finished, yo. Oh, they know about you. they 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 heard about you, nigga. Graveyard Alliance. Tell them no. Tell them we ran out of memberships. What the fuck? My man say Hulu, it wouldn't let me. How the hell? I don't know. I don't know. Like Sprint gave it to me for free. A couple months ago I got an email. Sprint says, hey, with your plan, now we're giving the free version of Hulu away. So I don't know how much it costs. And I had the Fire Stick forever, so I turned off my Netflix because you can watch everything on Netflix on the Fire Stick for free. And Netflix keep hitting me up with emails all the time, yo. Yo, Trap. Yo, we'll let you back, bro, for $8, my homie. $8. What's up, man? You ain't want Netflix, bro? Delete emails, Netflix. Stop sending me these shits, man. It's $8, Trap. Yeah, for like 6 months, and then it's gonna go back to your fucking $16 a month shit. And I don't watch enough TV for that shit, yo. I don't. I don't watch enough TV to have cable or a subscription to anything. I just need internet. And if I didn't have like Hulu and the Fire Stick, man, YouTube would be enough for me. I can find documentaries from here to the end of goddamn the world watching some shit on YouTube. Like I don't really watch TV. And then like anything that happens real big on network television, you can find that shit on YouTube. Somebody have a clip or something about that shit on YouTube anyway, like. Tell him we ain't got no more subscriptions. I don't think he gonna believe that. Hit him with the error code. He trying again. Hit him with another error code. I think that probably did it. Heard about that motherfucker. He one of them smart niggas. Mm-hmm. Tell him it was an error. 2 times. Both times. Information valid. Account valid. Access denied. Error code 67497. Error code twice. Hit him with the not the name in print. But it's something about seeing that name in print. But I never get tired of that shit. I ain't gonna lie, y'all. I don't never get tired of seeing.
Welcome to another episode of ECTV's Rowdy Discussions. I'm your host, Travis Strix, and today our guest is Holly Yakonis. Artist H.W. Yakonis, Scranton native.
Wow, this looks weird as shit, yo.
Look how I'm looking at the camera.
Wait a minute.
Over a decade. Most recent.
So this was on a green screen, right? And so I'm reading off of a teleprompter, guys. This is the first time I've ever read off a teleprompter. So it's like I'm looking at the camera, but I'm not looking at the camera. It's weird as shit, yo. Alright, this is my first time watching this too, so bear with me. I look and sound weird sometimes, dude. Like, damn it. I got a little glare on my glasses.
A women empowerment series that depicts women warriors fighting social injustice. You can find her work on social media as well as local venues such as First Friday Scranton. HW contributes a portion of her proceeds to nonprofit organizations that continually supports women's rights. How are you doing today, Holly?
I'm great, thank you for having me.
It's excellent to have you here. The first thing we want to do is let our guests know a little bit about you. So, are you local to the area?
I was born and raised in Scranton, so I'm definitely a native from this little town. When I met my husband and we had moved in together, we met, he's from like the Luzerne area, so we met in the middle, and I currently live in Boca, Pennsylvania.
Wow, so Scranton
Through and through.
So, what about a little bit about your education? What school did you go to? High school or college did you go to?
So I graduated from Scranton High School, and I graduated from the University of Scranton in a social science degree, and I'm currently halfway through my master's in education. Wow. But I don't necessarily have art school, which I thought you were going there. Like, right.
Social sciences and education, so what gives you such an interest in art if you're majoring in education and social sciences?
So, I love art. I love art so much. I love every form of it. For me, as a multidisciplinary artist and mixed media artist, visionary artist, I carry many titles. I enjoy dance, theater, and I just love art. So ever since I was a little kid, now I don't necessarily remember all of the story that I'm going to tell you, but so like my mom telling me or family telling me, but when I was a young child, like elementary school throughout middle school, I had a lot of medical issues. I had a lot of medical needs, a lot of things to be taken care of. It turned out that I was born with a coarctation in my aorta, so in my heart. I didn't have my surgery until I was 12. And in between that time, from about 7, 8 through, 12, and then like years of recovery, not years of recovery so much in the physical sense, but in like diet, exercise, mental, things like that. Not being able to do things that your friends are doing. So, that period of adolescence, everybody brought me art supplies, coloring books, things like that. And I remember doing connect the dots, and I would color the picture. No one colored the picture, right? They would connect the dots up, I'm done. No, you're not, you gotta color it in. So I just remember things like that. And then throughout my teenage years and, young adulthood, I have a woman empowerment series. There were some domestic, issues in the home, broken family, things split up. And the thing that always, always stuck with me was my art. I never lost an art supply. To this day, I have a box, it's called the Archives. That's what I called it. And I have drawings and paintings from when I was about 12 years old.
Wow, that's amazing to be able to hold on to those memories like that.
And I just never let them.
Now, the thing too with art and your and you being in the educational field, where do you draw your inspirations from, or have you had mentors to guide you in art to help you express your creativity?
So I draw inspiration from a lot of different places. I really enjoy travel. I love traveling. I love to go to different cities.
I think that shit look
I love to go to New York City, Philadelphia. We had plans to go to Chicago this summer.
This was a good one. This was a good
And I like to go to museums. I like to, every state or city that I'm in, I like to find a museum. Whether it's, if they don't have an art museum, I'll go to like a history museum. And that's like a lot of times where I draw.
And it's pinned at 36 minutes and 43 seconds. So he used the bulk of our interview, yo. Because we talked for about, there's probably, I don't know, maybe like only 10 minutes cut out. And that's like a lot of like interchanging and shifting some other stuff around, but that's most of our conversation.
Inspiration from.
That's pretty good. That's good. And I'm the same way in that aspect where if I travel, I want to see what type of art is popular in the area. If there's any popular local artists in the area, like you say, there are galleries and museums, or it's always interesting. And like you said, it does drive your creativity, your inspiration and motivation just to see the works that other artists produce. So what actually keeps you motivated as an artist to continually produce works of art?
I paint with my feelings. I feel in myself as an artist, I have to paint. I have to. I don't have a choice to get these like visions out of my system. And I know that might sound crazy, like, oh, what does this lady mean? But I think of things, or I see things, or I'm inspired by something, and I'll think of this creation, and then boom, I make it happen, okay? And then throughout that, people tend to like it, and people tend to purchase it. So with that, you grow an audience, and you get someone that buys something, and that person might buy another one, and before you know it, you have somebody collecting. And I mean, that is a motivator, but I really truly just, I paint with my heart, I paint with my feelings. I in the mixed media, I paint all over. You feel it, you texture, you know what I mean? I get in the paint, like that orange, I did that all literally with my hand, like not just a brush. I was like, I'm gonna like rub that in, I'm gonna get that in there, I'm gonna mix that color this way, and I have more control using this as opposed to using this.
And I get that having a true passion is, and it's difficult to explain that to other people, where you feel like this uncontrollable urge or desire to create, and I'm right there with you, and it makes artists like us hard to be in a relationship with sometimes, and it gives us a different perspective on the world because things affect us so deeply on an emotional level. And like you say, when it gets to that point, you just have to create. You have to get it out of your system. So I'm totally good with you on that. So who are some of your biggest inspirations when it comes to art? Who do you like to examine their artwork, or who do you compare yourself to?
I don't necessarily compare myself to anybody. I'm not the next somebody. I'm the first HW. Okay, so I know, and that might, I don't know how that sounds, but I just want it to sound the way it sounds. My main man, Picasso, I am enthralled by his work from the beginning to the end. Okay, like I have so many books. The first gift my husband, at the time when we first started dating, he bought me a big Picasso book, and I was like, "Ooh, you're a keeper. We're married now," right? So, and side story, speaking of being in a relationship, with our first home, we shared space. for me painting, and he was like, nope, we got a new home. He's like, you have your own room. So that side story, you have your own space. So, but Picasso, I'm so in love with his work, his painting, his sculpture, the way that he was as a person. And I know sometimes with my Woman Rares collection, you know, I might get feedback like, oh, he was like, you know, not good to, and you know, that's a different story. So, but the way that he painted and the way that sometimes he cut himself off from society, and sometimes he was like, you know, I'm not going to sell this to you because I don't feel like you're the type of character that should have my work, right? And the shapes, the organic, natural to him shapes and colors, the fact that he liked artificial light better than sunlight. I'm a big fan. I'll be closing the blinds. And, you know, I have lamps set up. I like to create my own shade, to create my own, this is where I want my light to come from. And if it's coming from two different directions, if some technical person wants to tell me I'm wrong, I'm going to say, no, I'm not. I remember the first time I saw a Picasso, a real one. I was 20 years old. I was in Boston, Massachusetts at the Big Museum, and I was there on a student government trip, and we had free time, and I go to the museum, and they had the Rape of this Divine Woman. Now that's a whole series that went through the 60s, but there was one specific one there, and it was bigger than the building. It was huge. It wasn't even on the wall, it was on a platform. I don't know how they did it. And I said I was with my girlfriend at the time we went. She still makes fun of me to this day. And I'm staring at it, and I'm looking every texture, every line, and I've seen it in pictures, it's not the same, you know what I mean? This is a defining moment in my life, and I'm just like in love. I start crying. Security comes up to me. Ma'am, are you okay? I'm fine. My friend comes, let's go. I'm not leaving yet. And I stood there for a little bit longer, and I just like took that in. That's 15 years ago. And it was such an amazing experience. I had studied his work prior to that, and I continue to study it to this day.
That's an awesome story.
Thank you.
Yeah. That is the purpose of art, to induce that deep emotional reaction to it, whatever emotions you feel, whether it be a sense of empathy, a sense of love, a sense of joy or anger or disgust, and art has the ability to bring those out of us in an instant and overwhelm us to the point where we physically cry over it.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. That's
Yeah.
a positive thing. Once again, art is supposed to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfort, you know? So I can absolutely agree with you. Like, Picasso was just one of those people. An amazing person and amazing artist in general. Like, and I've watched a few documentaries on Picasso, and he just had this swag about him. Someone told a story that he even paid for a really fancy meal by doodling on a napkin and said, there's your payment for my dinner tonight. So I wish I could just reach that level
Same.
of fame. But I can definitely see that you draw some inspiration from his techniques and apply it to your own stuff. Would you care to talk about the art that you brought for us today?
So these two pieces in particular, they're fairly new. This was done in March of 2020, and that was done in April of 2020. And I never intended on them being a set, but they're definitely set. So currently in the United States and the world, we're going through a health pandemic. And with that, we're in Pennsylvania, and we were on lockdown, and we're phasing into reopening. During that lockdown, I had a very difficult time, along with a lot of people. Millions of people had a difficult time with it. And as much as they said we're in this together, I still felt alone. And my husband was on the front lines, working in the hospital, and that was it. He was calm, but it was difficult for me, knowing he's out there in the midst of all this. At first I couldn't paint. At first I was, the first couple of days I was like, woo-hoo. I was like, yoga, paint? No, that did not happen. It was like snacks and crying. So when I finally was able to try to create, I actually painted another piece. It's a black canvas and there's a mixed media person sitting in it and just like colors running down. And when again, maybe I'm a crier, I was crying because it all hits you at once. It's the whole world. It's not just you. So when I was able to, I split, let me get out the big canvas. Let me just put it on there. And I took it outside and I got this spray paint acrylic, magazine cutouts, brushwork, handwork, palette knife up the top. Like let me get my tools out. Let me get my tool belt out. Let me do this. I go outside, spray painting, covers it faster. And I'm not an instant gratification person, but I do work with acrylics and spray paint and get that base layer down so you can just build upon that. So this, I say every painting is me, and right. So this is, I hate to say that it's like the virus. It's really not. It's everything. This is me or anybody just being held down. You're held down or something. You can't do anything. You're forced in your own home. And I understand it was safe. I'm not against it. I'm just talking about my experience through it. This is supposed to be like a garden. Like it's there, but it's so messed up right now. You can't go to the park. You can't. You were allowed to go for walks and things like that, but you couldn't go to a public park. You couldn't go hiking for a long time, things like that. All these cutouts are pictures of C blocks. So there's the park bench, there's fencing, floral, there's buildings, like electric wires, like I'm definitely not like a country person. I'm a city. I like big cities, and I just felt like I couldn't go, and this was right around the time we had a trip planned, like to New York City for the day of the weekend. Your friends out there, we're hey, I can't go. Why can't I go? You know what I mean? So I painted it.
So my question is, did you go into this piece with a defined vision for the finished
No.
product, or it was just an emotion?
It was an emotion.
And you went through it, and as the piece is progressing and coming together, you can kind of see where the emotions are building up more and what you're focusing on more in the piece.
Right. Like, so the first layer is gray, right? So it's just gray. It's dark.
Just the heaviness.
Just that heavy gray, cover the canvas, just cover it up. And then I subscribe to a lot of magazines. They try to get me to go digital on my phone. So I'm focusing on magazines. I do exercises to unblock, like artist block. I do exercises like I'll spill color on a canvas, or I flip through magazines and I'll just rip like what I feel ripping out. Resin pours. It's just a way to get it out of your system. And then in this case, I was putting out all the city pictures. And I made a vision board during this time too, and I was cutting out pictures of beaches. I was like, this is what I want to do. So it was work on that mental. So I started that, and then the red, and then I'm like, well, there's got to be an end to it. There's got to be some leaf. There's got to be some green. There's got to be some nature. And then I put it on. And I was like, do I want to do a figure? And I'm like, I do. So actually.
I do not know what the fuck to do with this background. I got an idea.
I'm not gonna look it up and say, oh, let me draw this line. No, it's
shit
like, all right, the arms go here, right? Because that's me. The red line, I feel like that was a bold move. I'm like, it was like, if I do it, it's on there. I could redo it, I could paint over it, I could, you know what I mean? And when I hit it, I was like, oh,
Just felt right.
And I hit again, yep, and then that was it.
The layers to it. It is really deep. The layering process in itself draws you into this piece, and the form is so abstract that line catches you first, and then you feel the weight, and then you say, oh wow, it is pulling down on this figure here. But like you say, the lightness and the green pulls you right back, and the deep textures. It's such an amazing piece. It's so deeply layered, so richly textured. and the contrast of the colors, I can feel it. I really do feel it. I like this.
Exactly.
And so what's the piece beside it?
Okay, so that was in April of 2020, a little bit after this one, and I started finding ways to feel better about being home. I started going live on Facebook. I started doing art shows. I did a month-long tour my home and look at all the art in my home, and we're going to talk about it. And it was amazing. It was so fun. And it was on Wednesdays, and every Wednesday was like the best day ever, you know? So I started to feel better. I started to like come out of my funk a little bit, you know. You see the good in the world. I always look for the helpers. I joined a group called NEPA Strong, and it's still going strong, and they donate back, and they have auctions, and it was around Easter time, and you can't be with your family. I Zoomed with my family that day, you know. And we had an auction. I donated some art. The auction, tons of people donated. The auction raised enough money, and it fed like 300 families for Easter. So I didn't do it. Kristen Millerhan does that, and I'm gonna throw her name out there because she's just incredible at it. She's still growing strong. She is like, you know, helping keep these businesses open, helping artists, helping anybody, any home project, any crafters, you know, things like that. So I'm starting to feel better. I'm starting to find the good in the world. And I miss my family, and I miss my friends, and this piece is called Contact. So I have a huge bay window in my living room, and you know, you can see like the mountains, the trees, the sunset. I mean, it's not Main Street, but I'm just saying look past that, right? And I'm like yearning, like for some company, like it, you know, like I was like, I want to see my friends. Like our Friday happy hour message just like wasn't, I have a cup of tea, you know, like it was nice. But it's not the same, it's not enough, it doesn't fill that void, you know? So I built a city out of people. And I found this ad in Vogue magazine, and it was like the people of Vogue. And it had like these little pictures, right, of all these different people. And I was like, oh, that's so cute, I ripped it out. And then I cut it up, and I was like, I have like 4 or 5 of these. Let me see if the ad's in there, because they do that. So I found 4 or 5 of it. It was the same ad, and I ripped them all up and got my little cutter out. And then I knew I wanted it to be a window, and I started the process. It's crazy. So it's a little bit brighter, so I'm feeling a little bit better. I wanted to work a little bit more on figures, so I said, okay, and I'm just going to town. First is spray paint. I hated blue spray paint. I didn't have any. I couldn't get any. Right?
COVID.
So, I almost forgot, like, and I'm searching for it, and Michael's has curbside pickup, but they're only open like 3 hours on one day, right? And then to get spray paint at an art store, well, it was like $8. Yeah. Go online, it's like 3 or 4. So I find it on Amazon, now I gotta pick the blue out from a picture. I was like, all right, so I pick it out. By the time I got the spray paint, I was like almost done. But I did get it, so I have blue spray paint. And I paint the window now to people, and I want her reaching out, I want her looking out, and just like wanting to like go out. What if First Friday? How many art shows were canceled? How many venues? I had started a brand new line in March of like clothes from that. We can get to that later. So many shows gone.
So sad.
Rescheduled, they'll call, you know what I'm saying?
So sad.
I was booked for the whole year. Oh man, okay. So I'm painting. I love umbers and golds. So I was like, I don't want the window to be too woody, but I was like, I kind of wanted to really represent a window. When I built the people, I placed them all on the floor first. And because there was multiple pictures of the same person, I had to make sure none of those people were by each other. Right? That's just me. So I built it up. Then, on the top of every building is a woman. I did that's on purpose.
What's the significance behind that?
So because I'm big into women empowerment, and I support women causes and women moving forward and breaking the glass ceiling and all that, like I'm all about it. So that's just, so I held true to myself. I always hold true to myself no matter what. But I did that, and when I was building it on the floor, hold on, gotta put the girl up here. on the top. Oh, I gotta switch them. Goes on top. So then, 2020 is a dumpster fire. So sometimes I'm like, is that like a fire? Like, is everything on fire? Like, is everything like crumbling to the ground? Or is that the light, and the sunshine and the warmth of what's gonna be because we're safe at home?
This is another very, very interesting piece, and that's what I saw. I saw the flame and the fire in here, and I need you to break that down because the coolness of the blue has this water effect to it, and we're in this moment in society where there is a conflict on so many sides, just like fire and water, but trying to find this happy medium and stay connected with our loved ones. Your work is just, it speaks on a lot of different levels, and I think that's what really attracts me to your stuff, because it can tell more than one story at a time, and just your process of building your art, like, you're so free, and you take so many different risks in putting these elements together. And the texture, I've been trying to add more and more texture to my pieces lately, but I love how you do your texture. Like I say, it looks so free and so organic, and the composition comes together very, very well at the end. And the layers of cutouts, the woman empowerment, having the female at the apex of the structures. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you so much.
It's really good stuff. You have some other pieces that we can look at?
I do.
All right, we have two more pieces here. Let's start with the one closest to see. What's the title of this piece?
Woman warrior breaking through the glass ceiling.
Woman warrior breaking through the glass ceiling. That's a mouthful.
It is, and then it is. But so I have a whole woman warriors collection. So we could say glass ceiling, we could say resist, we could say, you know what I mean, and then
the main title, then the sub.
Right, right, because they're a part of something larger.
So let's go into the imagery on this one a little bit. The first thing I noticed, once again, is your eclectic use of different mediums and materials. Now this right here is so dramatic with the glass shards and this little handcuff. You wanna break down some of this for us?
Okay. So this is where mixed media, HW, comes in. All right, so as a whole, women make less money than men, right? Women are, held down by the patriarch, and we have to work a little bit harder, and it's okay because we're a little bit stronger, but at the same time it's like it's not okay. I think we need to all be equal pay, equal rights, equal everything. Like, I'm not saying that like some, the feedback will be, oh well, a woman can't do this type of job. Well, maybe I can't. I might not be able to do that big manly job, you're right, but you're doing it and you're getting paid for it. But if there is a woman out there that can do that, then she should get paid the same. Yeah. Like, I like the examples, like, like firefighters, there's women firefighters, and it's like they're getting paid less. Is their life less valuable? So that's kind of like, and I'm just an example, firefighters are great people, but I'm just as an example. And you need to break the glass ceiling. So the glass ceiling is a term that was created in the 60s, 70s, that women couldn't get upper management positions in companies based on the fact that they were a woman. And that was literally the only fact, based on research, based on everything. A man would always get the job over her, even if she was more qualified than him. So we create this. So I have the glass here. It's so literal and so abstract at the same time And I think it needs to be. I feel like the handcuffs are like we're just supposed to sit there with our hands crossed and our ankles crossed and just sit there and seen and not heard. So no. Well, she holds the key to her own destination. I have the citizen gloves on. We're all citizens. It's just a brand, But it means more than that. Like, I'm a citizen, you're a citizen. We both have a job. We both get paid the same. You know what I mean? Like, things like that. When she breaks the ceiling, here's, I have a lot of bloodshed in these things. Because I feel like there is a lot of bloodshed, and I feel like, blood, sweat, tears, you just have to hustle and hustle and hustle. So, people give their lives, like their whole lives, protesting and just speaking their truth and trying to make change and, die doing it without seeing it. But they paved the way for me, for us. And that's what this is. So.
The woman warrior. The one more thing. We have 3 stars above her.
Oh, they're achievements. Like that.
Mm.
So, so that's the achievement. So when you get, you get your, when you're a little kid, you get your star sticker. When you win the race, you get a medal. When you are very successful in your job, you might get a plaque. Like, there's always like that tangible, something, appreciation that someone gives you.
I love it. I love the fusion of the lighter background. There's definitely layers to that. I want to get closer.
You want to see it?
I'll do it after, but I can see that there's something back there that is colored. It may not be important to her. Maybe something that she's leaving behind, a situation that is bursting away through there. And once again, the textures you put up here is amazing. Not trying to put a bunch of brush strokes and highlights to make the blood drip look real, but to actually lay it on there thick so that the paint captures the light itself is just another great aspect of this piece. And the figure herself, the eclecticness of it, and how you arrange the key, the feeling of bondage, but at the same time you can visually see these handcuffs are no longer locked and restraining her. It's a very, very pivotal piece. I like that. Let's talk about its counterpart here.
So that's another woman warrior. She is the woman who had been through some terrible things. Rape culture is a real thing in our society, and people get away with abusing women. Some people don't get away with it, and the women that are victims of it and then become or experience growth into becoming a survivor of it. So she's a survivor, and not only is she a survivor, she's an activist, and she geared up and says, I will protect you. I will speak for you. I am the voice of the voiceless. You'll no longer be hurt anymore. Like, I'm here for you, and I understand why you feel this way and how you might not be able to get out, but I'm going to help you get out. And it's just, thank you.
That's very awesome.
Thank you.
This has been another episode of ECTV's Roundtable Discussions. I'm your host, Travis Prince, and today our guest was H.W. Yurkonis. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
born in the colony of Atlantis.
Hey guys, welcome to Q's History. Noam Chomsky and I are ready to deliver the 13th Amendment because you need to know it. Students, lifelong learners, cray on the internet, this is a big one, so you better go get the door because the warning's here. So you're all going to need to know the 13th Amendment. The 13th Amendment, of course, is the first of the Reconstruction Amendments, the Civil War Amendments, and you can actually kind of group them together to at least memorize them. So just call it the 15th Amendment and 15th Amendment. And the concept is, we're going to learn more in depth in a second, the 13th Amendment is really about abolishing slavery, about freedom for African Americans. The 14th is going to be equal citizenship, and that's a huge concept. Go watch that video. And then the 15th Amendment is going to grant voting rights to African American males. So an easy way to remember it is just to say, free, equal citizens, vote. If we look at a little bit of the kind of the concept of the Constitution and slavery, slavery is nowhere mentioned legalized in the Constitution, but there's certainly references to it as it relates to representation, like the 3/5 compromise. You can put that video right there, and I'll freeze. And you just learned all about it. How great is that? There's a mention of the slave trade in there, but really no legalization of slavery. The only really, I guess, constitutional way of talking about it is through the Supreme Court and their rulings, and certainly the Dred Scott decision in 1857 kind of branded all slaves everywhere as property, and they couldn't be citizens. So we certainly have this kind of dilemma for Lincoln as he's going into the 1864 election about what to do in the upcoming Reconstruction. Remember, the Civil War is fought from 1861 to April 1st, 1865, and we're already thinking about abolishing slavery as soon as the beginning of April in 1864, a full year before the Civil War ends and before Lincoln is assassinated. So let's take a look at kind of the nitty-gritty. Let's take a look at first the words, and then we'll quickly take a look at kind of the processes by which it was passed. So let's take a look at the words on the wall really quick.
Section 1. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. And then Section 2, you can see on the wall, Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation.
Senator Charles Sumner actually was the first to really kind of write an amendment that went to the Judiciary Committee, and his amendment was much more flowery. The language of it was very kind of abolitionist oriented. But the Senate Judiciary Committee changed the language to a much more technical sounding wordage, and that actually comes from the Northwest Ordinance of 1787, where it talked about slavery. So the amendment was first put to the Judiciary Committee by Senator Charles Sumner in April of 1864, and we have kind of this upcoming election coming where Lincoln is running for re-election. Lincoln is under a lot of pressure to support this amendment before the election. He actually saw a Free Soiler, John Fremont, that was running against in the primary and threatened to run as a third party member. So he was kind of under the guns to really support this amendment, which he did. And Fremont dropped out and he ran opposed, and he wins in 1864, campaigning on, I'm going to support the 13th Amendment, I'm going to abolish slavery. So here we have Lincoln running for re-election in 1864. He's coming under pressure from the Free Soil Party to his left in terms of supporting the abolition.
Dude, you did not even go over the accept part. Why didn't you go over the accept part? I just wanted you to talk about where they said accept.
In the Constitution, the 13th Amendment states, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States, or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Although this amendment is said to have abolished slavery, mass incarceration serves as a form of institutionalized slavery.
The 13th Amendment also states that slavery shall be abolished except in cases where a person has been duly convicted of a crime. So the 13th Amendment actually has paved the way to create a whole nother level of slavery that was basically, and still is, sponsored by, of course, the United States government and sanctioned by the United States government.
Before we talk about what institutionalized slavery looks like today, it's important that we understand its origin and how it manifested itself. So what was life like for African Americans after slavery was, quote-unquote, abolished?
Life for African Americans after the abolition of slavery was brutal. There were several things that were in place that made freedom a really dim prospect for African Americans. Freedom itself was provisional. So you had a situation where you had free blacks, but then you have blacks with no voting rights. But without voting rights, then what's the stop of an embittered South that had just recently lost the war to begin to regain power and then enact their power in a form of terrorism against black folk? Okay? And they did that.
The Jim Crow laws emerged towards the end of Reconstruction in 1877 as a way to keep African Americans socially, economically, and racially inferior to white Americans.
Jim Crow was a term that was used for a system of laws that was separate but equal. In other words, you could, because African Americans had civil rights that had been given to them under the Constitution and under Civil Rights Acts, to do away with Jim Crow laws. Jim Crow laws were saying that you could have separate but equal facilities. And as a result, you used to see signs that for colored only or for whites only. You'd have restaurants that had segregated eating facilities. That happened on bus transportation and mass transportation, trains and things of that nature. That resulted in separate but equal facilities being given to people, but they weren't really equal.
Many Africans were not allowed to use their rights. They were terrorized in using their rights. And certainly this created, or perpetuated, I should say, a huge wedge in between African Americans and white citizens. And it really did damage to both groups because it gives white people the delusion that they were superior. And certainly many Africans, because of the power structure was in the hands of those racist whites, many Africans internalized those beliefs. So I believe it was Carter G. Woodson who said, when you control a man's thinking, you don't have to worry about his actions. You don't have to tell him to go to the back of the bus. He will go there automatically as a matter of course.
Shortly after Jim Crow, chain gangs emerged in the 1890s. Prisoners were chained together and subject to physically challenging work as a form of punishment.
If you were convicted of some kind of crime, and that crime could be as insignificant as an insulting gesture toward a white person, you could be convicted for that crime, taken to prison for life, and then made to work in a chain gang and essentially be re-enslaved with no pay. And once you got into the prison, what they could essentially do to you is not only force you to work in slave labor, but hire you out to corporations. You're not paid for it, and these corporations essentially are given the gift of free labor.
The U.S. has the highest incarceration rate in the world, having about 2.3 million people in jail at any given time, and majority of the people in jail have not been convicted of a crime. The percent of people incarcerated rose 500% from 1980 to 2014. As you may notice, mass incarceration is a huge problem in the African American community. The three-strike law implemented on March of 1994 was supposed to crack down on big-time drug offenders, but led people who committed smaller crimes to serve possibly lifelong sentences. This severely impacted the African American community because more police targeted them by focusing more on urban areas than suburban areas.
What they were attempting to do with the three strikes was, federally, if you had violated laws and you reached the third strike, you would then be asked, or would then be put in prison for the rest of your life. So if there was a first offense was something serious as a felony, like a burglary, and then you committed a second offense that was also a felony, let's say that was something like a robbery, maybe a non-violent robbery. That third offense, as something as minor as a drug or retail theft, could then qualify you for the three-strike rule, where you would no longer be eligible for probation or parole within the criminal justice systems.
But some people believe that mass incarceration is a good thing. Because of the increase in mass incarceration, the crime rate has decreased. From 1993 to 2001, the active violent crimes, such as murder, decreased by more than half in big cities. They also argue that mass incarceration increased due to the rise in spending for law enforcement and that people of all races are in prison, so it's not a racial issue. However, throwing someone in jail for something as small as recreational drug use is not only a waste of tax dollars, it doesn't serve as a form of rehabilitation for someone who may be addicted to drugs.
We wind up putting people in prison for basically having an illness. If you are addicted to drugs, then we should probably look at some of the things that have been done in Europe to legalize drugs and then use the tax revenue from that to really focus in on the rehabilitation of people that are addicted to drugs.
The criminal justice system has injustices in it that need to be repaired because it doesn't make sense for all these young people of African American descent who are in jail. Something's wrong.
I would say mostly it affects minority populations, and we really need to review the criminal justice system to be sure that more things are focused on rehabilitation rather than on punishment per se.
Far too many cases. The punishment simply does not fit the crime. If you're a low-level drug dealer or you violate your parole, you owe some debt to society. You have to be held accountable and make amends. But you don't owe 20 years. You don't owe a life sentence.
The new Cadillac XT4, XT5, and XT6, the ultimate and iconic luxury. Current eligible lessees get this low mileage lease on this 2020 Cadillac XT5 for around $399 per month.
Free.
That's right. TurboTax free is free. Free.
Annetta, lock the doors, because what I'm about to say is going to upset some people right next here. Okay. Christopher Columbus did not discover America. Exactly. Never mind the question of like how you can discover a place where the inhabitants are watching you arrive from the shore. They weren't wearing pants. Is that what somebody said? I like that. So anyway, there were actually many other mariners before Columbus that discovered America as well. Decades earlier, even eons earlier, there were so many people that were coming across these islands and this continent. But it's only been in the last century that evidence has surfaced and continually grown to indicate that many of these pre-Columbian explorers might have come from Africa. So the first scientist to promote this possibility was Leo Wiener. Born in Russia, Wiener immigrated to the United States in the late 18th century on his way to British Honduras, where he planned to open a vegetarian commune. Well, when that turned out not to be the dream job he expected, he moved back to the United States and he became a professor at Harvard University, as one does. But in his time in Middle America, he started noticing things. There are lots of things that led him to encounter certain discoveries that made him consider that possibly if the origins of American civilization might actually be in Africa. So he observed so many linguistic and botanical and other similarities that between 1920 and 1922, he published an extensive 3-volume piece called Africa and the Discovery of America. Now, unfortunately, this is 1920s, so as yet no serious archaeological evidence had been done to, or work had been done to support his botanical theories, because everyone knows over raiding tombs in Egypt and things like that. Not Howard Carter. So he didn't have a whole lot of other stuff than the names to support them. However, he knew that other clues must exist. For example, he pointed out that Columbus himself was aware that African mariners had preceded him. In his diary of his second voyage, Columbus tells of how the natives of Hispaniola actually had given him gold-tipped metal spearheads that they said were brought by black-skinned people who had come in large boats from the south and southeast. Coincidence? I think not. No. So, what's interesting about that, so upon returning to Spain, is that he actually took the spearheads and he sent them away and they had them assayed, and it turned out to be that these spearheads were covered in this metal this alloy that the inhabitants called guanin, and the metallurgists actually found out that this was an alloy of 32 parts. It was like 18 of gold, 6 of silver, 8 of copper, which matched the metal used in spearheads made in Western Africa for thousands of years, as carried by medieval African warriors, including the Mali and the Moors. The West Africans even called this metal guanine, the same name used by the natives of Hispaniola. But nothing more was said about that. Conspiracy. Well, probably because, in the interest of Spain, it was in their best interest that they didn't want to have any challenges to the discovery and the claims to the islands of the West Indies. Well, as the poem goes, or it should anyway, in 1493, Columbus stole all he could see. Yeah, so on his second voyage, which was 10 times larger than the first, Columbus went on a frantic but unsuccessful island-hopping trip to find gold and spices. He carried along several natives from his newly discovered San Salvador, which the inhabitants called Guanahanvi. Another island that the natives pointed out, which was really large, and was called Soameto. Soameto. Now, Columbus continued going around whimsically renaming every island he could find, but, Leo Wiener, being the curious person and the linguist that he was, and the etymologist, he couldn't help noticing that the origin of these many place names and botanical names in Mesoamerica actually sounded distinctly like other languages in Africa, particularly Bantu and even Arabic. Wiener and numerous other botanists have also puzzled over the presence of certain plants that predated Columbus but originated in Africa. For example, the calabash bottlegourds. Now, this is a species originally from West Africa, where they were well cultivated in America before Europeans arrived, even long before they existed in Indonesia or Polynesia. So, in fact, the Pacific was the last place that bottlegourds actually reached and expanded. Pardon my café. Well, if it were not for transatlantic trade, pre-Columbian times, it would be very difficult to explain how certain plants, such as the yam, the sweet potato, domesticated cotton, peanuts, and tobacco, reached both West Africa and the Americas. The spread of the plantain is particularly noteworthy because it could not remain viable if it was carried in salt water. Well, in the 1640s, a Brazilian botanist named George Marcgrave Speaking of botany, Ricola. No. There you go. So thank you very much. So the Brazilian botanist George Marcgrave wrote that the establishment of a particular varieties of plantains in this region stands as a strong argument for ancient maritime contact between the Americas and Africa. That's bananas. B-A-N-A-S. That's right. All right. All right. Yeah. Okay. So, how do these plants and languages? That's going to be good for the video. All right. Fix and poke. All right, use the cough drop. Okay, so how do these plants and languages and other cultural elements get to the Americans? Well, some believe, what's it? Well, you're cheating. Well, you know, some people believe that over thousands of years, Africans migrated out of Africa and then over the Bering Strait, then down into South America, and things like that. Well, another explanation to this, and so get ready. There you go, let it out of your system. Awesome. Africans had ships. In fact, they had more kinds of. They had unbelievable. They had a shipload of vessels, and they had away. The anchors way. So in fact, they had 4 kinds of vessels. And Nubian pottery. This is an example of Nubian pottery with a painting on it that shows a long-hole pottery art. That shows either a long-holed boat or a papyrus raft or a hauled-out canoe. And then this other painting beside it is from, the first one was from 3000 BC, and this is a bird's eye view of an oared riverboat in Chad. And it dates from 3500 BCE. Now, the Africans of Guinea also had dugout canoes hewn from these monumental trees on the coast there. In 1500, which was a few years after Columbus's voyage, the Portuguese captain Pacheco Pereira wrote, "In this country can be found the largest canoes, made of a single trunk. Some are so large that they hold 80 men." Now, the West Africans were known to lash 2 dugout canoes together, side by side, and no one questions the seaworthiness of a similar type of Polynesian catamarans. Well, here's a 15th century Portuguese painting of sailing canoes on the Congo estuary. The Portuguese, like Captain Pereira, had heard that African traders were visiting Brazil in the mid-1400s. So to demonstrate that mariners from West Africa could have sailed to the Americas using papyrus vessels as early as 2000 BCE, the Norwegian adventurer Tor Heyerdahl actually used ancient shipbuilding techniques in order to construct and sail the Ra 1 and the Ra 2 in 1969 and 70. Now, generally, some type of sailing vessel will average about 100 miles per day, even without sails. And in an ocean current, something like a raft or reed-boat can average about 60 miles a day. Now, Islamic historian Amir Hajib reported that voyages west from Mali were happening in the year 1311, just 150 years before Columbus. Now, when he asked the Mali emperor, shown here, incidentally, holding a globe of the world made of solid gold, asked him, well, tell me about this rumor about Atlantic travel. And he said that his predecessor had commissioned an expedition with 200 ships filled with men and a similar number with gold and water and enough provisions, 2 years. And he said, go out and find something, and if you don't come back so you find something or you run out of food. And unfortunately, when one ship returned, and the captain told the emperor that we sailed for a very long time until we met with what seemed like a river with a strong current flowing in the open sea. I was the last ship that turned where I was and did not enter the current. The others disappeared. I do not know what became of them. So, well, this phrase seems to describe a trade wind-driven equatorial current, or the Canary Current. Now, I apologize if anyone has any cats on their lap at the moment, but so we basically have two rivers, two circular rivers in the ocean here, and you can see it's very easy for Africans from the south and the Angola regions to come up towards the equator going westwards, or from the western coast to north of the equator to go eastwards along that same current. But you know, this Mercator projection doesn't really, in terms of cartography, boom Mercator, it really doesn't do it justice. So let me just do this little animation for you to show that they could have taken the Canary Current up and around, and then they go over they fall off the edge of the Earth, and then they come back and they make landfall back again in Cape Verde. So it is definitely possible. So Now, at least a dozen explorers, including Constantine Ravenous, reported seeing blacks upon reaching the New World. In fact, in 1513, Spanish explorer Vasco Núñez de Balboa, who you might know because people named a very popular dance after him, anyway, so when Balboa was there, he said he met members of a tribe of Ethiopians in Panama, and according to Balboa's log, and came from a totally black village that was 2 days' journey away, and he figured that these blacks had come from Ethiopia at a much earlier date. So there are also examples of physical evidence, including pre-Columbian African skeletons, which have been found throughout the Americas. Now, dating between 800 BCE and 300 CE, these murals are from the Temple of the Warriors at Chichen Itza. Now, they clearly feature, the colored version is easier to see, but they clearly feature 3 races, and it's depicting black and Indian allies and a battle against white invaders. Now, because of their long blonde hair jewelry, a skin-hulled boat that we have here, right there, and also the fact that they're fighting naked, which was common for warriors from Ireland, they believe that these are Celtic warriors. And because this mural shows that blacks are clearly fighting on the side of the Mayans, that they must have been integrated into society much longer before this painting was done in order to form that form of alliance. Now, there are numerous pre-Columbian figurines with striking similarities to ancient African artwork, and they've been found in Central and South America. In southeastern Mexico, there are 18 rock statues that of heads up to 11 feet tall that are facing the ocean, looking east. Now, archaeologists call them the Olmec colossal heads, after the people that carved them. And they were produced for 50 to 200 years and date from at least 900 BCE, when they were mysteriously buried for some reason. So now think about it. It took enormous effort to quarry these. The smallest one was 6 tons, so 6 to 50 ton blocks, to quarry them and carry them 75 miles away from the quarry, and then carve them and then erect them. These people that they modeled them after must have been important. Whoever they were, they must have been important to be remembered or obeyed or worshipped. Well, Jose Megler Serrano, the archaeologist who first uncovered them, he pointed out that facial features look amazingly like African blacks, and they all display distinctive headgear or protective helmets. Now, however, some people think that these are actually the facial figures of overweight babies. Yeah, I think they needed to wear helmets when they were babies, if they think that. So
some people say they're Asians. And
then still others find it easier to believe that instead of Africans, those depicted or responsible for these sculptures, and as well as the Mesoamerican pyramids, were not African Americans, but dun dun dun. So why is it that so many people have never heard of this alternative of American discovery by the continent's nearest neighbor? So, I mean, look, now the thing, exactly, whoa, where'd all others go? So, this is look at how close this is. I mean, white people don't think that you could go, this is closer compared to more than twice the distance that Columbus sailed. This will win a drink for you in a bar game sometime. Which state is closest to Africa? Maine. Yeah, look, see there, you're gonna need a globe for this. Look at that. Versus, is it so? Yeah, geometry, science. There you go. So anyway, and so very few Americans know this. And why is this? So having examined textbooks throughout for years up until 2018, James W. Lowen says that although some books cite the alternative possibility that Vikings, Norse, or even Irish may have reached America first, not one textbook, old or new, mentions the West Africans. So whether or not you give any credence to this admittedly controversial Afrocentric theory, it's obvious that Columbus was not the first to discover America, but the last. So why did he make such an indelible mark on Western people's minds? Well, conquest may have a lot to do with it, Right, Eurocentrism. And also unlike the mundanity of perhaps thousands of years of peaceful African stability that Vikings, Norse, or even Irish may have reached America. Maine. Yeah. Look at how close this is. I mean, white people don't think that you could go this is closer compared to more. So why is it that so many people have never heard of this? Those depicted are responsible for these sculptures and as well the facial figures of overweight babies. Yeah, heard or obeyed or worshipped. Well, Jose Megler Serrano, the archaeologist who first uncovered them, he pointed out that facial features look amazingly like African blacks, and they all display distinctive headgear or protective helmets. Now, however, some heard or obeyed or worshipped. Well, Jose Megler Serrano, the archaeologist who first uncovered them, he pointed out that facial features look amazingly like African blacks, and they all display distinctive headgear or protective helmets. Now, however, some people think that these are actually the facial figures of overweight babies. Yeah, I think they needed to wear helmets when they were babies, if they think that. So, and then still others find it easier to believe that instead of Africans, those depicted are responsible for these sculptures, and as well as the Mesoamerican pyramids, were not African Americans, but dun dun dun. So why is it that so many people have never heard of this alternative of American discovery by the continent's nearest neighbor? So, I mean, look, now the thing, exactly, whoa, where'd all the continents go? So, this is, look at how close this is. I mean, white people don't think that you could go this is closer compared to more than twice the distance that Columbus sailed. This is one drink for you in a bar game sometime. Which state is closest to Africa? Maine. Yeah, look, see there, you're gonna need a globe for this. Look at that. You know, versus is it so? Yeah, geometry, science. There you go. So anyway, and so very few Americans know this. And why is this? So having examined textbooks throughout for years up until 2018, James W. Lowen says that although some books cite the alternative possibility that Vikings, Norse, or even Irish may have reached America first, not one textbook, old or new, mentions the West Africans. So whether or not you give credence to this admittedly controversial Afrocentric theory, it's obvious that Columbus was not the first to discover America, but the last. So why did he make such an indelible mark on Western people's minds? Well, conquest may have a lot to do with it. Right, Eurocentrism. And also unlike the mundanity of perhaps thousands of years of peaceful African transatlantic trade, the quest for gold and world domination makes a much better story. And, the good Queen Isabella was so proud of her fella that she immediately 200 cannons and another. The most widely accepted version of American discovery. The most well-armed, the most documented, and the most of American textbooks. And one other thing that should be pointed out here is that in the years after Columbus discovered, 400 years, 20 million Africans were stripped from the coast of Africa, half of them dying in transit for slavery, who knows how many fleeing inland. And at the same time, within 5 years of Columbus's arrival in the New World, 90% of the indigenous population had died from disease or murder. 90%. So the fact is, that leaves few people to have a written or memory or an oral history of the seafaring of their African discoverers. Historian Samuel D. Marvel wrote, as a subject for research, the possibility of African discovery of America has never been a tempting one for American historians. We choose our own history, or more accurately, we select those vistas of history that more or less kind of explain to have the promise of the greatest satisfaction for ourselves. And we have had little appetite to explore the possibility that our founding father was a black man.
Definitely the hottest girl on my Tinder feed, and I wouldn't have had a chance with her 6 weeks ago, but I'd recently read a book that gave me an advantage over every other guy who was hitting her up.
So nevertheless, there is considerable evidence that to suggest that African mariners also participated in this great adventure, no less than Vikings, the Portuguese, Spaniards, Celts, Chinese, Polynesians, and Arabs, and others. So now I would like to raise a toast to all the discoverers of America before Columbus, wherever you may came from. May more of us discover you. Thank you. Woo, hands up.
I have been looking forward to this podcast for a long time, gentlemen. This is about as cool a podcast. For me, as a fan, this is like one of my favorite ones. Because Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock together, and your new book, Magicians of the Gods. Is it out officially everywhere now?
It's published on the 10th of November.
Fantastic.
All over the U.S.
All over the U.S. And Randall, you guys together is so exciting to me because I know you guys spent a lot of time together and you were working together on just this current project.
We did a fantastic research trip across the Channel Scablands of Washington State, which Randall has been walking the walk on for decades, and he just showed me the absolute irrefutable evidence of cataclysmic flooding in that area, and it plays a very important part in the book. North America was the epicenter of a global cataclysm between 12,800 and 11,600 years ago, and when you see it through Randall's eyes, you get it immediately.
This whole subject, since you've been on my podcast and you've been on the podcast, is something that comes up. I mean, I'm not kidding. 4 or 5 times a week, someone will grab me and ask me, when is Graham coming back on again? When's Randall coming back? And when I tell people that you guys are coming on together, the people will start freaking out. We've been saying before this that people are taking time off work. They're having little viewing parties. So to you people out there, we're just as excited as you are. So tell me what's been going on. So tell me the Washington State thing. Tell me what you guys saw and what picture evidence and what was revealed.
I'm going to pass that one to Randall first off.
Well, we were basically traveling. What we did was we traveled from Portland to the Twin Cities. And what we did was essentially follow the southern margin of the Great Ice Sheet for the most part. And what we were looking at was this evidence that the whole ice sheet had undergone this massive, catastrophic, sudden meltdown. And basically what we saw in the landscape was evidence that was oceanic level currents flowing off the ice sheets. In fact, the geologists that have been looking at this use a term called spurdra, which was originally contrived
to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down there and confuse their language so that they will not be able to understand one another's speech. In verses 5, 6, and 7, God comes down and says, hang on, these people are working together.
From Yahweh over our hugely taller and more magnificent man-made structures in the 20th and 21st centuries. So I just thought that was interesting.
So you and I are going to disagree.
Oh, shit. What'd I say?
Just a little bit, because I've also done a video about the Tower of Babel, and I would have agreed with you and thought, and I would agree with everything you said for the entirety of my time as a Christian, even having read it, until I actually read it and focused on it. because the truth about the Tower of Babel story, and it's only 9 verses. I mean, it's Genesis 11, the first 9 verses, I think. And if you read it, actually, let me pull it up. Let me go to BibleGate.
No, you don't have to read it to me. I'll take it on faith. I mean,
oh my God.
I believe it's true. You know, you don't have to.
So Genesis 11.
I'm being corrected on live television.
No, it's not corrected. Well,
if I'm wrong about the context or the text itself, I definitely want to know. So tell me where you're at.
At no point does it suggest that they were trying to build a tower to reach heaven or to reach God. At no point does it say God was in any way concerned or mad about the tower or concerned that it could reach heaven, which would be preposterous anyway. What it says is, in verse 1, now the whole earth used the same language and the same words. Cool. We know that's bullshit already, so this whole story is done from the beginning. We know enough about linguistics to know that that's not the case. But, verse 2, it came about as they journeyed east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. Okay. Then they said to one another, come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly. And they used bricks for stone, and they used tar for mortar. Now, first of all, we're talking about a brick construction, so I'm sure we'll get engineers letting us know what can be done.
Height and girth you could support, sure.
And they said, come, let us build a city, build for ourselves a city and a tower whose top will reach into heaven, and let us make for ourselves a name. Otherwise, we will be scattered abroad across the face of the whole earth. And they'll get to the crux of this. In verse 5, it says, the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the sons of men had built. The Lord said, behold, they are one people, and they all have the same language. And this is what they begin to do. And now nothing which they purpose to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down there and confuse their language so that they will not be able to understand one another's speech. In verses 5, 6, and 7, God comes down and says, hang on, these people are working together. They are communicating, they are working together, they want to stay together as a community, and if they keep doing this, there is nothing that they will be unable to accomplish. That is a direct paraphrase. And this is what they begin to do, and now nothing which they purpose to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confound their language, that they will not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of the whole earth, and they stopped building the city. Therefore it was named Babel, because the Lord confused the language. But the truth of the matter is, that story is about a group of people who were advocating for communication, cooperation, and principled humanism. And God came down and said, if this shit keeps going, they're going to be able to do anything, and we can't have that.
But you just validated my position that it caused him great chagrin, which is why he confused the people and scattered them to the wind.
Right, not because they were going to build a tower to heaven, though, but because they were cooperating, and they would have no more need of God.
I buy that. I mean, I perhaps I should have been clearer. I think I see the two tied. It's a cooperative endeavor, but you're right. It was more about the attitudes of the people and the idea that they could produce these amazing results without divine intervention. God was not pleased.
But I can imagine what would happen if they were building a spaceship.
We have breached the end of the solar system, and yet Yahweh has not lifted a finger. He's not shown up and said, hey, wait a minute, this kind of cooperation ain't working for me. The International Space Station, right? Talk about global cooperation. Yahweh has not once said, hey, hang on, you can't do that. Like,
hey, Google Translate, motherfucker.
What was the term that you used?
We read that too. What's that?
You used a term in the caller. You called it Google foo.
Google foo, yes. Your ability to type the correct phrases into a search engine to get the results that you're looking for.
There's also another, for the snarky people in the audience, if there's ever someone who is not able to procure the most basic of information and you want to make a point, there's a website called Let Me Google That For You. And you can go to that website and type in whatever the subject is, and then you can send your friend or family member that link, and it pops up and says, hey, let me Google that for you, and then it takes them to whatever the subject matter is. It's not for everybody, but if you're a little snarky, you might enjoy it.
I've done it. We've got Andrew in Oregon who wants to talk about native religion beliefs. You're on with Seth Hatt. How are you? Andrew? put Andrew back in the queue just in case he's been on hold for like an hour and a half, so we didn't want to lose it. Kevin in the Philippines, you are on with Seth Matt. How are you? All right. We're going to return Kevin back to the queue in Philippines. Jonathan in Houston, Texas. How are you? I have no idea. We're going to return you back to the queue.
What the hell is wrong with all the queues?
We went on a tangent for so long that all the people who were on hold went off.
Sorry, I tend to, like, I had Matt over, I don't know, you were going through town and you were here, and so we just set a camera up. And I'm like, hey, let's just talk for a few minutes. And it was like an hour and a half. That shit happens. That's probably my fault as much as anybody.
I love the fact that you think it's your fault.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, you don't give a short answer. Like, I thought I was bad.
I am the king of talking for days.
No.
So, Jessica in Vermont, how are you? You're on with Seth and Matt.
Hi. Doing good. I feel really privileged to talk to both of you. I like both of you so much. You've taught me a lot.
Thank you. That's the only one you should like. Let's fix that.
Well, I'm sure you probably have, like, in front of you when I talked to the guy that answers all of the calls before you guys. I'm going to try to, like, not get emotional, because this is very emotional for me.
I want to caution you real quick, Jessica. There is a chance, I've heard rumors, I know what you're going to talk about a little bit. There is a chance, I've heard from other people, that YouTube has been shutting down videos that in any way we're going to be addressing, so maybe this won't be able to be aired, but I may have bad information, so please go ahead and if it doesn't make what is ultimately lived forever on YouTube, at least we will have tried to have a discussion and help out.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of just am looking for advice on how to deal with my parents, my Seventh-day Adventist parents. And they think the world is ending, of course. And see, I'm starting already.
That's all right. Just be real. Don't apologize for emotion if it comes through. You're doing great.
It doesn't matter. You can skip whatever COVID stuff that they may be thinking is in the world. Just the important thing is that you're.
That's what it is.
Yeah. That's the thing that I want to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, of course, because of everything that's going on with COVID, they think that this is the end of the world and that Jesus is going to come back, you know? And because of that, they have been working overtime on trying to make sure that my 7-year-old daughter is going to go to heaven. And I don't know how to deal with them. Because I don't want to give them an ultimatum. I love my parents. I love them so much. And I love my kids so much. They've been there for me through thick and thin, and I don't want to tell them, you can't see your granddaughter and your grandson unless you stop doing this. But, like, we were here this weekend. They brought Jesus books. That's what my dad calls them. He brought Jesus books, and he read stories to her all weekend. And she is getting in over her head, because if I try to mention to her that, you know, that there are probably parts to it that aren't real or that they're just stories and stuff, she gets very upset with me and, you know, starts crying and telling me that I'm lying and everything. And I don't know how to deal with this.
Jessica, this is going to be mildly tough love. I can't give advice to someone if their position is, I don't want to tell my parents not to do something, because the only advice that I can give you at this point is that that's exactly what you have to do. You have to set up boundaries around your life and around your daughter's life, and your parents either respect those boundaries or they don't. If this is in fact, if they are undermining your ability to parent and are being disruptive, when you're trying to teach your daughter responsibly how to look at these stories in a different way,
right,
that's a big deal. However, you may already be in too far. I want to find out what Seth thinks about all this, but you may be in too far, because if your daughter likes when Grandpa reads her stories about this stuff, and finds it interesting, you may just have to kind of allow that so that you don't end up with, you know, a sort of rebellion dismissal of your views. You should. It's about teaching them how to think more than what to think. You can, if you do it right, and show that you're supportive and that you don't believe this stuff, but you know, hey, you should learn about it or whatever else. You can set up ways teaching her about other religions as well. Is a good way to perhaps help inoculate. I don't know if Seth's got extra stuff here.
I mean, it's a tough one. It hurts my heart. You know, you can hear it in her voice. There is a familial consequence that keeps a lot of people from breaching this with moms and dads and siblings and spouses, because, you know, if I hold the line, they may disappear, or I may have to disappear them from my life, and I love them, and I don't want to do life without them, and I want them to have grandparents. My child had grandparents. You know, there's this weird familial blackmail that kind of happens, whether or not they intend to hold it over you. I just grieve at the idea that you and your daughter are cheated out of an authentic life because someone else can't observe boundaries. There's this weird parental permission that happens sometimes. The parents will say, well, this is not how we raised you. So they somehow tell you that, you know, this is how you're supposed to live, this is who you're supposed to marry, and this is how you're supposed to worship, and this is how you're supposed to vote. And if you don't do those things that we have prescribed for you, then we failed as a parent. How could you have failed us? We failed you. It's a failure all around you. And it hurts my heart to hear about it. But Matt's right. You are very much in the right when it comes to drawing a line, a boundary, and saying you're not going to parent my child. And I think it's important that my child know what you believe and that you believe. I think that's just fine.
How they would feel while they were raising you, somebody else in the family who was, for example, Catholic or Hindu, were trying to teach you their religion as if it were true, and how they would respond to somebody undermining their parenting that way.
That's a really good point.
And I think the idea that they get to do this because they're on the family tree, or because, you know, you are our daughter, and I get that they're concerned for the child's immortal soul and all that, but I think, to me, this causes us such emotional pain that we often will allow things we normally would not allow, and I sense that in you, right?
I mean, because all the way up until everything started happening with COVID, if my two kids went down to their house and stayed for the weekend, which would happen once every couple of months or whatever, they would bring the kids to church. And my husband and I were always like, you know, whatever. It's not a big deal. He did the same thing. I have two older children. They did the same thing with them, and both of those older children are atheists. And my 20-year-old is actually the one who opened my mind to how religion is such a farce. And so I always just kind of like, oh, you know, they're fine. But now that everything's been going on with COVID, it's like they are just going out of control with it. It's like every time I turn around, they're talking to her about it. They're reading things to both of them about it. I'm just like, okay. What in the world is going on?
Yeah. Let me jump in, Jessica, real fast. And I'm not Yoda on this, okay? But I've got to protect it because I was an indoctrinated kid, right? And I get it.
Yeah.
I think with your child, I think your child needs to know what your parents believe. They believe this with all of their heart. Here's what they believe. I don't agree. And I think you need to be honest about your own journey. And here's why I don't agree. And here are, and Matt's right, teach them some other religions, show them some other faith traditions. And then another interesting exercise might be, take some examples. Hell, I got a whole chapter called This is the End in my book, Sacred Cows, that just goes through all of the failed end of the world predictions, a lot of the major ones over the past 2,000 years. You know, honey, back in the year 500, this happened. And back when the Black Plague happened, people said it was the end of the world. And back when this happened, 9/11 happened, people thought it was the end of the world. And every generation has had people who thought that at any moment, people have been saying that Jesus is coming back for 2,000 years.
I remember when I was a little girl, my dad and my mom were telling me all the time, it's literally the end of the world any day now. Any day now.
It was in the New Testament.
All the time growing up.
It was asserted in the New Testament. There were some among you who will not see death. The implication was that Christ was going to return in the lifetime of some of the disciples. That was 2,000 years ago. And so I think what this does is it provides an opportunity. Discovery. You're not telling your child, well, this is a bunch of bullshit. What you're saying is, hey, take a look at some of these other instances for people that freaked out and it never happened. Show them Harold Camping, who was wrong 4 different times on the end of the world and Jesus returning. And I think if you give the child examples and make it part of a journey, that is going to produce more fruit and better results. And it will also produce in your child a sense of ownership when they come to the conclusion on their own that, you know what? Grandpa and Grandma maybe believe that it's the end of the world, but a lot of these other people, they got it totally wrong. Maybe they do as well. That's a starting point. I don't know if that has any usefulness or utility for you or not, but that's kind of where I fall.
There are exercises you can do. I know Russell Glasser used to recommend quite often play a game about how you tell the difference between what's fantasy and what's reality. How do we know dinosaurs are real and insert fictional unicorns aren't? I was going to go with something at Christmas, but just in case somebody's kid's watching, I don't want them to hear me say something. Oh shit! Never mind. Having fun because there's one more call I want to get to before the end of the show, and I think.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys.
Jessica.
Yeah.
Give yourself permission to set boundaries. All right. There's no guilt. There's no shame. If they freak out, that is not on you. You can do your best to work through it, but
you let them know.
They are the one who stacked this deck.
Right.
Give yourself permission to set boundaries. It's okay to do.
And let them know you still love them. This isn't you hate your parents or you still love them. Right. This is about how you are going to be raising your kid and what involvement other people are going to take. And if you can frame it to them that way, maybe you'll find that it's not quite the end of the world with regard to teaching your daughter.
Hang in there.
Right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jessica. And reach back out, let us know how it goes, and we'd love to hear more when you get that. Last call for today is someone who we had asked to call back, and I appreciate the fact that Seth and all the crew and everybody are staying a little bit late because I wanted to hear and check in with Mary in Minnesota. How are you, Mary?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm having a better day than I thought I was going to when it started. So I'm happy you called, and I appreciate your patience.
Sure. Is you could put out more content.
Oh my God. I'm overwhelmed as it is. By the way, Mary, I just wanted on the record that I'm glad I'm not the only one on the broadcast with a biblical name. Actually, Matthew is a biblical name, but normally,
yes.
Being an atheist, the name Seth is always like just an odd phenomenon. But I saw the Mary and
a lot of people say, "Oh, you must be a good Christian girl," and I'm just like, "Well, not really." So, anyways, I had called in February and talked to Matt and Daryl Ray.
Yes.
And I've been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. I'm still doing pretty well. My prognosis probably isn't as good as it was then, but I'm still pretty healthy. And I had a brother who was really struggling with things, and him and I have been having a lot of really good conversations. And so, when they were talking about, you guys earlier today were talking about terminally ill patients, and, I'm terminally ill, and, like, my kids spoil me rotten. Anything mom wants, my mom gets, which is pretty awesome, by the way. But, I'm just like you are. You could die before me. Like, I found that people don't want to talk about death.
they're afraid to. If I even say anything, some people are, like, say I would say, oh, I don't know if I'll be here at Christmas. They say, oh, you can't talk like that. You can't talk like that. And you know what? I'm not afraid to die. I'm not afraid that I'm going to burn in hell or anything like that. So, like, I'm not afraid to talk about it at all, but everybody is.
You know, Mary, we had a call earlier in the show, and I don't know if you heard it, but there was a guy who was calling in because his father got a terminal diagnosis, and we were talking about whether or not, or to what extent religion was potentially pushing him to strive to continue living. And just for clarity on this, you know, because we spoke, what was it, back in February, I think it was?
I think so, yeah, I think.
Yeah. You know, you're terminally ill and you're not afraid of dying, but you're also would prefer to continue living. And
sure, absolutely.
You know, what do you think about religion as a motivator to either keep people living or whatever?
I think it's all those prayers that you guys didn't say for me.
Mary. What's your take? To speak to Matt's question,
you know what it is? You know what it really is? It's just, it comes down to like your genetics, how your body responds to treatment. I try to be healthy. I try to eat healthy, but I still eat some junk food. Like, I feel pretty good still. I feel pretty strong still. I don't know if I have a month or 6 months. I really don't. I don't think I'll be here. I'm pretty sure I won't be here a year from now, but you know, I'm not at all afraid, and I wish I could convey how I feel to people that have so much fear of death. I mean, I know it's a survival instinct. We all have to have it to a certain degree, but, and I feel lucky too. Like, people are like, oh, I'm so sorry, and it's like, I'm so glad that I didn't just get hit by a bus and boom, I was gone. I've had all this time, we've been off because of everybody being on furlough. I've had my kids with me. We've played board games. We've had campfires. I've been living my best life for the last 6 months. And this is a gift that I get to find out that I have stage 4 pancreatic cancer and still have so many good days left.
It's a question we get.
I'm not afraid. What's that?
Sorry, I'm sorry, Mary. That's the question that we get asked a lot, and I don't mean we in the sense of the atheist experience. I mean just people in general. If you had a terminal illness, would you want to know, and how would that affect your life? It's kind of one of those part questions or thought exercise game questions where you're getting to know people, and you know, because some people would want to know, and some people wouldn't want to know. I know that I'm the type of person, or I'm pretty confident I'm the type of person who would want to know because I want to be able to make the best decisions I can. I know other people who wouldn't want to know. And how someone like you and my friend Dave Warnock, who are both hitting this head on, and like every time you call, I can just hear in your voice a strength and confidence and comfort. I could only hope that I had a half of that if I ever actually...
You would have it. You would, though. You would, though. I mean, I honestly think that on the other side of the fence where you are, okay? Like, if I was on the side of the fence where you are, because it's like I'm on a different side of the fence than everybody else now. Because I know. You don't know. I mean, you could die before me, but you don't know.
Right.
So I get to take advantage of that and go, hey, I want to spend as much time with my loved ones. I want to have conversations with people I care about. There's things that I have had all this time to live life and enjoy life, and I have zero fear. And so, I mean, I really appreciate what you do, what Seth does.
This video is sponsored by CuriosityStream. Get access to my streaming video service, Nebula, when you sign up for CuriosityStream using the link in the description. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy tells us that a man must walk down 42 roads to be called a man. But that seems like a lot of work for a rather modest reward. The National Space Society tells us there are only 31 milestones to hit to become an interplanetary species. interplanetary species, and eventually an interstellar one, is not something that is going to happen overnight. Indeed, even discussing it isn't going to take just one episode, so we'll be doing more than one, starting today with our opening moves. It is important to realize, though, that this won't happen overnight. Even if we get cheap space travel tomorrow, it will be centuries before more than a small fraction of our population lives off Earth. I thought today we'd look at some of the critical steps we'd expect to need to make along the way, and what it might look like as we head out to space and make it our home. We'll be borrowing a fair amount from the National Space Society's Roadmap to the Stars, the most recent edition of which I've linked in the episode description. The roadmap has 30 milestones and is a concise but detailed and easy to understand look at the topic I'd encourage you to explore. Today we'll be looking at the first 12 milestones. We'll also be referencing many of our prior episodes, particularly the Upward Bound series and Outward Bound series, which have tended to focus on specific topics like devices for getting into orbit or how we colonize a specific planet. You can see those episodes for specifics, and I'll mention them and put them up on the screen as we go. As something of a side note, as usual, I'm writing this episode sometime before it will air, and in this case at the end of May, when I was originally going to be down in Dallas at the International Space Development Conference, giving a talk and accepting an award from the ISS, which had to be postponed for the virus. And at the same time, we had a rather historic launch from SpaceX, the first private launch of humans into orbit. So it seemed a doubly appropriate time to be looking at this topic. If anything could be said to have dogged space exploration and settlement in recent decades, it is the seeming halt to it and the absence of private companies in it. We had the space race and the Apollo missions in the 60s and early 70s, landing folks on the moon 6 times. Then 50 years of no one repeating that. There are a lot of folks who think it never happened, and in some ways, it's hard to mock them for that because the most obvious rebuttal is, if this was so easy we could do it 6 times 50 years ago, why haven't we done it since? And why hasn't anyone else? The rebuttal to that is basically that now any further manned missions to the moon wouldn't be worth the cost and risk, which for a lot of folks amounts to saying, so it is basically a big worthless rock. For that not to be true, we need to be able to go back to the moon in a big and permanent and profitable way, and that requires a lot of groundwork which we'll examine today. Saying, the space shuttle came to an end and was often seen as far more expensive than it was originally expected to be or was worth. And even though the International Space Station has been running for a couple of decades now, we have no hard plans for upgrade or replacement, and no countries frantically waving their hands asking to donate more money to it. Many like the idea of humanity somehow doing away with money like on Star Trek and just exploring space for the advancement of science and the betterment of our species. But on the Earth, in the here and now, a good way to jumpstart our ascent into space is to make space profitable, so private companies are charging ahead trying to get involved. Eventually, hopefully, space will be the domain of not just big corporations, but even small businesses and mom-and-pop operations. You're not an interplanetary species until most of your people and business is off-world. And that's why SpaceX tends to be so popular with a lot of us, because not only have they pushed orbital launch costs down quite a lot, the NSS's roadmap's Milestone 1, but also made a big step toward their Milestone 4, establishing in-space commerce by private companies. Milestones 1 to 4 might be considered our baby steps. Those are respectively lowering launch costs, having continuous occupancy of low Earth orbit, getting space tourism going, and establishing in-space private commerce. Those are continuous goals, though. Your first step, but also something you keep pushing at and expanding. That first milestone, cheaper launches, is clearly needed, but there are many ways to address it, and we look at some of the more grandiose options in our Upward Bound series. Everything from reusable rockets to space elevators, skyhooks, mass drivers, orbital rings, launch loops, and more. Some, like reusable rockets, are approaches we're already using and improving, while others, like the space elevator, rely on our someday developing mass production of a material able to handle the huge material stresses a space elevator needs. But space elevators could work today with available materials in places with weaker gravity, like the moon or smallest planets. So too, devices like mass drivers might be good for Earth, but definitely work great on low gravity, low or no atmosphere places like the moon. Still other approaches like the orbital ring, while probably doing a lot of prototyping and offering some technical challenges, mostly aren't in use right now, not because they are hard to take, but but because they are major investments and will only save us money when we have vastly more space traffic. It's like building a railroad across the continent. Saves tons of money, but not until you've already gotten very developed. Prior to that, it makes more sense to use something smaller and self-contained. It's your freight train to orbit, not your wagon. And it's something we not expect to see until we have that major demand. Such things are not our focus for today, as look at early space development. These earlier milestones are mostly focused on the technical challenge of getting into space and the basic appeal to people and businesses to be out there, but they all are focused on low Earth orbit, a space just
got a little bit more done on this piece. We're working on this for the next couple weeks. Because this too is a commission. Off of that artwork. Appreciate y'all chilling in the studio with me. Catch y'all next time. Peace.